Hokage Starting from the Instant Full Level, Chapter 661 to 680. Chapter 661. This axe is still too light. However, before he could react, the sight of the sight made everyone's pupils shrink suddenly. I saw Escanor, whose height difference was several times. The moment he raised his head, the axe clenched tightly in his right hand, without any fancy, just raised his head with an axe. PFF'd. The stinging sound of the air suddenly sounded. The heavy iron rod stopped abruptly before half a meter away from Escanor. Looking at the frozen scene, there is also the blood splashing from the throat of the fish giant. Huge head thrown flying, the steady iron rod that was clenched in his hand was cut off at the waist. Bang! The sound of 4 heavy objects landing suddenly echoed. Splash of blood, the area of more than 10 meters was dyed red. Looking at this scene, the huge scene fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at Escanor with a hint of disbelief. They may not know about the others, but this giant who was easily beheaded by Escanor's gestures was in existence with a reward of more than 70 million. It can be said that the fish giant is the most popular existence in the competition for the place to join the 100 Beast Pirates. However, now it is such a child's play, in front of everyone's eyes, was easily beheaded. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe this is true? This axe is still too light. Escanor glanced lightly at the black axe dripping with blood. This fish giant is too slow and lacks strength. It's really not worth my shot. Looks like it might be fun to take your head. Voice was like a tide, and at this moment, it swept the audience like a hurricane. When the people present saw Escanor's gaze falling on Shipshead, let alone them, the nerves of Cavendish, who was in the room, suddenly became tense. It can be said that in the face of Escanor's arrogance, they never expected to give such an answer. Shipshead is a pirate with a bounty of more than 200 million, and the fact that he has the Beast Pirates as a big backer is enough for people to weigh 1 or 2. Even some pirates who offered a reward of hundreds of millions did not dare to speak provocatively. Now this arrogant person is still in front of more than 500 pirates, talking crazy. This is simply insane. No, it should be said that for the pirates present, this seems to be a new opportunity to join the 4 Emperor's pirates. Haha, you arrogant person, you really like this character. Shipshead laughed coldly, and the next moment a gloom flashed on his face. However, it is one thing to be liked, and it is another thing to provoke the majesty of our beast pirates in public. Cavendish, is this yours? Today, I intend to recruit you to join the Beast Pirates, but according to Kaido's habit, it seems that I will beat you to half-death first, and then drag them back. Speaking of this, a stern look flashed across Shipshead's face, and he said, "Come on, as long as you can take them down, no matter what means you use, you can be eligible to join the Beast Pirates." In other words, at the end of this game, whoever can stand here, no matter what. It's one pirate group, or 10 tens, it's fine. The small voice, at this moment, seems to be filled with magic sound. In the beginning, they squeezed their heads for a chance. Now that Escanor's initiative is delivered to the door, it has become a sweet pastry. What's more, the threshold for joining this time, but there is no requirement for the number of people. Kill. The sound of shouting to kill resounded throughout the venue in an instant. It can be said that most of the pirates gathered in this place are for the opportunity to join the Beast Pirates. Shipshead threw again, no doubt touching their nerves. Looking at the chaotic situation and the pirates rushing in, Cavendish was stunned. He didn't even think of picking up a conversation at random, and he even picked up a lunatic. Of the same party, and I am afraid that he will become the enemy of the Beast Pirates after the fact. No, it should be said, whether it can survive or not is another matter. Give me death. A pirate came to Cavendish first. The thick and heavy knife in his hand was suddenly raised and slashed down towards Cavendish. The violent scene made Cavendish wake up suddenly, looking at the sharp blade that was rapidly expanding in his pupils, and the cold light was flowing. The moment when his nerves were tense, he quickly pulled away and quickly moved laterally, and at the same time, with a flip of his hand, the saber around his waist, Durantal instantly unsheathed. Beautiful sword Swan Lake. PFF'd. The stinging sound of the air suddenly sounded. The cold blue light circulated on the blade. Cavendish swept past the incoming crowd. Waiting to show up again, it has already appeared more than 10 meters away. Chapter 662. Are you bullying the good and afraid of being soft? The dozen or so pirates who had been attacking in a frenzy were even more like a freeze. PFF'd. Scarlet blood arrows, without warning, splashed out from the throats of the pirates. Who was originally like a freeze, stared roundly, and fell to the ground in disbelief. They already knew that Cavendish with a bounty of 98 million was not easy. It's just, I never thought that Cavendish would be so fast. One face, they killed dozens of them in seconds. The most important thing is that when they die, they don't even see how the other party will make a move. Bang bang bang. The sound of dozens of heavy objects falling to the ground echoed, and the pirates who were rushing up could not help but stiffen in the air. He was clearly taken aback by the shocking scene in front of him. More, they all woke up, turned around and rushed towards Escanor. Just now, the fish giant was beheaded by an axe, and the scene was very shocking. However, compared to the Cavendish, which is too fast to catch, the seemingly bulky Escanor was undoubtedly a moving target in their eyes. After all, two fists cannot hold up the concept of four enemies, no matter what exists in any world. What's more, there are hundreds of them. Among them, there are at least a dozen people with tens of millions of bounties. Most importantly, in their eyes, the arrogance of the character template of Escanor, under the siege, seemed to be dumbfounded, standing in place. Are these bastards bullying the good and afraid of being soft? Cavendish's expression froze, and he shouted in a hurry, "Who let you be my subordinate? I'll save you." Abandoning these words, Cavendish staggered, moved quickly in the crowd, and rushed towards Escanor. However, just after taking a few steps, the moment when the air was broken, a cobweb shrouded his face and fell. The beautiful sword Blue Bird. Cavendish's face changed, and Durand in his hand swung back in an instant. PFF'd. The Cyan Sword Gang instantly tore the shrouded cobwebs directly, turned into a half spider, with 6 hands, and stopped in front of him. Little devil, just stay here obediently and watch that arrogant person be divided. There is still a glimmer of hope for you to survive. Falling down abruptly. Seeing that he has devil fruit and shoots to snipe Cavendish, the pirates in the field gathered around one after another. No one is willing to do the truth of falling into trouble. However, in the face of such a lineup, more eyes are still subconsciously locked on Escanor. At the moment when Cavendish was stopped, 5 pirates with a bounty of tens of millions all set their hands to ace. Kano hit it off. The crowd, all kinds of weapons clenched in their hands, glowing with cold light, slashed down with force. A madman, no matter what. How strong are you? Become as obediently, and join the beast pirates as a stepping stone. The bald man who took the lead, the heavy hammer clenched in his hand, appeared in front of Escanor and slammed it into his chest first. A powerful blow, immediately. Bring on the sound of wind and thunder. A close distance, the arrogant Escanor seemed unable to react, silently watching the attacks from all directions fall. It's done. The 5 people who shot 5 looked at Escanor, who was as dumb as a statue, and there was a hint of joy on his face. Bang! The dull thunderous thumping sound suddenly sounded. The tyrannical impact rolled back like a hurricane, setting off a large swath of sand and dust. However, the sight of the sight, and the huge anti-shock force in their hands made their pupils shrink suddenly. At Escanor standing in place like a rock, that body covered with pitch black like metal, like an iron tower, shook everyone's nerves. Full body armed and domineering, is this a monster from the New World? The voiceless exclamation sounded suddenly. In the first half of the Great Channel, the use of domineering is basically zero. That's because they don't have the right way to learn domineering. The only way, only by joining a large pirate group, can you have the opportunity to contact. However, there are also strong and weak points in domineering. Local armed color is domineering, it is only entry level. Can carry out full body armor and domineering, and can also accurately defend. Looking at the second half of the Great Waterway, that is also a remarkable existence. It can be said that these pirates who consider themselves extraordinary and have tens of millions of bounties. In front of him are all the younger brothers. Is this your attack? Escanor tilted his head slightly, looked arrogantly at the 5 who shot, and said, I also really want to be your stepping stone, but unfortunately, you have disappointed me too much. Flowering cherry blossoms are broken. The domineering black ink quickly covered the giant axe, and the moment when the cherry blossoms were turbulent like water. Escanor didn't have any fancy, and he smashed out of the sky. PFF'd. The pitch-black slashing ripples opened like a full moon. Wherever they passed, the 5 captains who were close at hand bore the brunt of the brunt, along with the weapons in their hands, and cut them off in the middle. Splatter of blood, the slashing posture, the remaining power swept away unabated. Chapter 663. Are you going to die? Wherever they passed, the pirates along the way were cut in half one after another. In the end, the slash hit the rock dozens of meters away, accompanied by a low roaring explosion. Eventually collapsed into the void. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Look at the vacuum area that was immediately cleared, and the corpse lying in a pool of blood. The people present couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva, showing disbelief on their faces. The huge battlefield fell into a brief silence. Dozens of corpses lay down on the ground, and the blood spattered, staining the floor red. Severed limbs, as well as internal organs, etc., were scattered on the ground. In the face of this scene, many people still have a nauseating urge to vomit. If not, it is because of the iron rule that the gun hits the first bird. I'm afraid he has already run away. This guy, it turned out to be pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. No wonder my invitation just now was completely ignored. Cavendish's expression froze. Thinking of the various invitations just now, I couldn't hold back my face. This is a wrong expression on the horse. However, this messy thought just flashed in Cavendish's mind. An awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air sounded behind him without warning. Looked like a ghost, and appeared first behind him, from the cadre of the beast pirates, with a reward of more than 200 million sips hide. Cavendish's expression changed dramatically, he didn't even think about it. As soon as the other party sees that the wind direction is not right, they will commit themselves to shooting themselves. Little devil, die for me, you can only blame you for having a relationship with this guy. Shipshead snarled coldly. The dagger clenched tightly in his hand, under the domineering arrogance of the armed color, stabbed toward Cavendish with an awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air. The speed is so fast and the strength is so great that under this close distance, people have a feeling that there is no way to hide. Looking at the rapidly expanding attack in his pupils, Cavendish was not reconciled. A flick of his right hand, Durand shot out again. PFF'd. A white silk thread, without warning, shot out from the side and wrapped directly around Durand. Let Cavendish's attacking posture stagnate. With this delay, Poothhead's attack could not be stopped at all. The only thing that can be done is to watch helplessly, and the armed sword is sent into his chest. Are you going to die? Cavendish's expression froze, and a trace of bitterness flashed across his face. Subconsciously, eyes closed. Moment. An awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air rang in his ears without warning. Dang, the crisp metal collision sound suddenly sounded. It made Cavendish's nerves tense. He opened his eyes hastily, and what he saw was an Escanor who seemed to have grown in size. The stabbed Tachi was caught with bare hands before it was an inch away from his chest. Your opponent is me, don't do anything to others, it will annoy me very much. Escanor turned his head to look at Shipshead, who was close at hand. Looking at this like a ghost, he appeared first in front of him. Escanor, who was not hindered by his huge body at all. Shipshead's face sank, and he growled angrily. The thunder of the sheep. Bang! Light blue thunder, blooming on the left hand of Shipshead. The 5 fingers clenched suddenly, without any fancy, and slammed down towards Long Yu's chest. Bang! The distance is so close, there is no way to hide. No, it should be said that Escanor, who is like an iron tower, has no intention of dodging at all. With an arrogant look on his face, he looked down at his chest and said, "Is this your confidence? It really made me wait in vain." A small voice echoed in the void. At this moment, it was as if a magic sound had been poured into it, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Who was still indifferent after suffering 2 major killer moves in succession? Everyone's nerves were almost broken all of a sudden. No, the next scene that came into view made people's pupils shrink. Escanor grabbed the void with his left hand, and the muscles of his 5 fingers tightened, and the fiery flames bloomed like a frenzy. Unmerciful son. Arrogant words came out. Dormant, the magic power in the body, in Escanor's hands, crazily compressed and condensed, turned into a fireball the size of a human head. A scorching high temperature was emitted, not only making the surrounding air scorching and sizzling. The pirates who got closer, even Cavendish, felt a tingling in their skin. No, it should be said that the weapons in the hands of some pirates, as well as the leather armor and so on, showed signs of melting under this high temperature. Crazy. No, it should be said, they are crazy. Watching the terrifying attack in Escanor's hands, in this blazing heat. There is even more, an inexplicable chill, in the soles of the feet, straight to the forehead. This is a natural reaction of the body and cannot be suppressed at all. Chapter 664. Who is this provoking? If this attack were to fall on them, who would be able to resist the chance that they would be able to join the beast pirates when they encountered a rare chance in 100 years? Now it seems that it is simply kicked to a very thick iron plate. Escape. A single thought flashed through Shipshead's mind. At this moment, he felt that the shadow of death enveloped him directly. The neural reflexes that have been rolling on the edge of life and death all year round made him react immediately. The artificial devil fruit, the power of sheep, is forced to the extreme. The muscles of both feet tightened quickly, like a slingshot, and the entire lacing shot backed away. The force of the ejection was so great that it shattered together with the ground beneath his feet, and appeared dozens of meters away in the blink of an eye. In Shipshead's eyes, he only needed 2 more breaths to appear 200 meters away. Once a sufficient distance is drawn, as a sheep, his running speed is also an outstanding existence in the animal system. However, the moment when the idea had just started, Shipshead looked back subconsciously. Escanor moved. His right hand, which was clenched tightly against the blade, was released. Then, he suddenly pressed on Shipshead from the air. Magic shock. Boom. When the 5 fingers were tense, a huge tide of magic power, like a vast ocean, instantly enveloped Shipshead. Shipshead felt as if he was immersed in a deep swamp, giving people a feeling of inexplicable suffocation. He could react. Escanor squinted, and the tyrannical magic power that had trapped Shipshead suddenly exploded. He fled in a hurry, only to feel the sound of the air breaking in his ears. Flew out of the open space hundreds of meters away, as if changing shape. Before he could react, a body like an iron tower followed him. As soon as he appeared above Shipshead, Escanor spoke again with an air of arrogance. Blast of mercy. Boom. A low air explosion sounded without warning. The fiery flame orb was thrown at Escanor. Head across to Shipshead below. The speed was so fast that it appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. Let Sips in midair. Originally, it was not as good as defense, and the only way to do it was to push the armed arrogance to the extreme. Bang! The awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the sky resounded through the sky. The violent blow not only broke Shipshead's tension, but also everyone in the field. Looking at the fiery fireball that appeared in front of him in an instant, the only thing Sipshead could do was to hurriedly raise his domineering hands that were covered with armament to block. The unmerciful sun hit Sipshead's hands in an instant. That were crazily compressed to the extreme were suddenly detonated. Bang! The fiery flames rolled back like a tidal wave. The flames that filled the sky were even more soaring into the sky. The pirates present only felt that the flames in front of them rose, and their vision was taken away. Of extreme heat is coming. Who were slightly inferior were the first to be overwhelmed and were directly overturned. For a time, the huge tavern area seemed to have fallen into doomsday. Dust rolled back, the flames soared into the sky, and the sound of the explosion resounded through the sky like thunder. The aftermath of the shock swept across the radius of the book for several kilometers. Some pirates and businessmen passing by were shocked by this scene. Especially knowing that there are people stationed here, the nerves are suddenly prying. They never imagined that in just 1.5 months, the third island of the Chambord archipelago would encounter the fate of a big uproar again. Moreover, this incident is still related to one of the 4 emperors, the 100 Beast Pirates. This is to provoke someone. It should be said, what kind of bad luck did the Beast Pirates encounter, and they were called to the door again. Boom! A thunderous explosion rolled and dispersed. Was standing on a tree branch in the distance, spit out a cigarette, looked at Ai Yin beside her, and said, "You girl, you've finished watching the show, and it's time to go back. Next, you don't need to stay here stubbornly, waiting for Laxus to come back. He said that he will join you at the Navy headquarters." Abandoning these words, Shachi turned around and left first. In her eyes, she already knew the result of this battle. If it wasn't for Ai Yin, who had just woken up, she would have insisted on coming to join in the fun. She didn't want to spend her legs running here to eat dust. "Sister Shachi, is Escanor a friend of the teacher?" Ain couldn't help but ask. "Friend?" Shachi's stride could not help but stop in midair, secretly relieved, and said, "It should be possible to say this." That moment, Shachi was still there, worrying. Ain suddenly said, "Escanor is her teacher." If, faced with such a question, Shachi didn't know how to explain it. "Well, Sister Shachi, let's go." Ain also quickly turned and left. During this time, Zepha also sent Bins to bring her back. However, Ain repeatedly refused to wait for Laxus to return safely. Chapter 665, Pulling You to the Bottom. Afterwards, Bins returned to the Navy headquarters because he was going to take the recruit assessment. Then it was staged. The beast Kaido was so embarrassed that he issued a bounty and wanted order. Right now, everything has come to an end because of Escanor's appearance, and Ain's focus has returned to training. After all, there is less than a month and a half left until the bet with Admiral Akainu. Rumble. The aftermath of the explosion rolled and dispersed. That swept up the sky was dispersed with the sea breeze. Until everything calmed down. The explosion center, which originally belonged to the battlefield, directly added a deep pit hundreds of meters in size. The surrounding rocks were even more scorched by the high temperature, and they appeared to be charred. A charred corpse, half covered by sand and dust, lay down in a deep pit. Within a radius of several thousand meters, many pirates gathered here. Their strength was slightly inferior, and they also hated it. Even Cavendish, who offered a bounty of 98 million, looked grey at this moment, and his clothes were also burned by the high temperature, and holes appeared one after another. Normal times, Cavendish would definitely turn on the runaway mode for the sake of his beauty. However, after seeing Escanor's powerful strength with his own eyes, he doesn't have the confidence to hate him now. In particular, seeing Sipshead, who even offered a bounty of more than 200 million, was instantly hit hard and turned into coke. Cavendish clearly knew that he didn't even have control over his domineering, and rushing to find a place would be his own death. Call. Escanor took a deep breath and fell into the ruins. Sipshead lying motionless in the sand, he spoke again lightly. As expected of an animal-type devil fruit person, the strength of this vitality is not. Ordinary people can compare, but I still don't have the habit of leaving a curse. The inexplicable words made Cavendish's expression stagnate. Bang! Hidden in the ruins, the Sea of Sips, with its charred body, burst forth without warning. At this close distance, he walked out of Kano's front as if going crazy. You bastard, even if I die, I will put you at the bottom. Master Jack, and Kaido boss, will never let you go. A hysterical roar resounded suddenly. However, it looks like a flashback. Escanor had already prepared for the violent hipshead. The moment when the right hand was covered with a domineering look, the 5 fingers merged into a hand knife, without any fancy, and slashed down towards the attacking Sip's head. Slash with a hand axe. Bang! A tyrannical wave of air slashed and vented out under the hand axe. Hip's head, who was attacking from the front, suddenly stopped in midair. The invisible slash crossed his body and quickly extended to the ruined rock dozens of meters away. With the sound of a roaring explosion, the huge rock slashed in 2 pieces. No, it should be said that, as well as Ship's head, it was directly split in half. The corpse that was hit hard on the ground, blood gushing out, and the ground was stained red. Escanor took a look, as if he had done something trivial, then turned around and walked slowly towards the port. Seeing this scene, the remaining pirates secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Even more, their expressions changed drastically, and they didn't have time to think about getting out and running away. In the face of the beast pirates' mindless and short-sighted way of doing things. Now Alaxis has made Kaido go wild. Now suddenly, an Escanor appeared, directly killing one of the 3 plagues, Drought Jack's confidant, Ship's head. If this thing gets out, I'm afraid, not only Escanor will encounter a frantic pursuit, but even the survivors like them will also be affected. Thinking of this, the scene suddenly became completely chaotic. Only Cavendish still stood there with a bewildered face. After thinking again and again, he hurried forward with gritted teeth. Hey, wait for me, how to say, we all fought side by side just now. I am now being targeted by the beast pirates, and you have the greatest responsibility. Hey, can you speak and give some reaction? What can I say? It is also a supernova that is just around the corner. It should be an honor for you to walk with me. With the departure of Cavendish and Escanor, the huge ruins did not become dead silence, but more news came. At the same time, it is placed in the Chambered Islands, and the eyeliners of various strengths. On the one hand, after a month and a half of Chambord Archipelago, the news that it was once again made a fuss, like a wing, quickly spread throughout the sea. It means that another new star is rising. To read the ununderlined version of the novel. Chapter 666, Before and After Not People. Marine Headquarters Marine Vando, in the Marshal's office. Sengoku was frowning at the report document in his hand, and Garp was lying on the sofa as always, eating senbei. From time to time, he looked up at the frowning Warring States and said, "Duent, look, that kid won't die so easily. If he really died, that kid wouldn't be so crazy and free." Hearing Garp's words, Sengoku sighed heavily, put down the document in his hand, and said, "Cap, you're still the same, and you don't care about business at all. Don't forget, there is still a bet between Laxus and Akainu. If he misses the time, it will not only be the loss of our navy, but also the kid, who will enter the navy boot camp, and also it's going to be tough." Having said this, the Warring States sighed, and the girl who stayed in the Chambord Islands, repeatedly refused our recall. I heard that recently, in the Chambord Archipelago, because the beast Kaido suffered a loss and finally couldn't find Laxus, he angered the students who were studying on the boat. As soon as Zephyr learned of this, he immediately contacted me and let me help him take care of his students. Hey, Carp, don't think about eating all day, okay? Your grandson, isn't he training with Laxus too? Are you not worried? Sengoku couldn't accept Garp's devoured appearance. It can be said that they are the best friend and the worst enemy. Of the theft of senbei alone is enough to make them fall in love and kill each other. Pity that a single challenger country has absolutely no chance of winning. Only thing I can do, I can only stare at it, and let the so-called food feud be over. Warring states, what's there to worry about? Garp put the last senbei into his mouth, patted the dust on his body, and sneaked his hand into the cabinet. However, as soon as he touched the counter, Garp felt the murderous gaze, he coughed dryly, and withdrew his hand. Warring states, don't worry so much, I don't worry about the end, if those guys really it will be dangerous, I think that guy will run out of his breath at the first time. If I'm not mistaken, Laxus is reluctant to come out. It must be to let Ain and the others train well alone. If we rashly intervene now, it will jeopardize his plan. In case it delays my grandson becoming stronger, how can I look at Garp, who speaks righteously, and suddenly becomes silent? At least, for the strange training program proposed by Laxus, this is completely beyond the scope of their common sense. As Garp said, if this time, Laxus doesn't come out now, it is because of training them to be self-reliant. Case they rashly intervene, Laxus' original intention is destroyed. It's not something they want to see either. Okay, the warring states period, you need to pay attention to the changes in the sea during this period of time. Not long ago, I seem to hear that the rubbish of Judiciary Island has done a big thing. Garp changed the conversation. The current sea is unpredictable, especially when there is a madman skeleton demon. As a marshal in the warring states period, you need to be more calm. Just like me, you can always maintain the identity of an outsider so that you can see the overall situation. A slightly long voice echoed in the office. Looking at Garp, who suddenly turned on the mouth cannon mode, Sengoku rolled his eyes helplessly, and was about to say something. A burst of rapid footsteps came from outside the closed door. Bang! The door was pushed open. Seeing the ghost spider rushing in quickly, the warring states frowned and said, Lieutenant General Ghost Spider, didn't I entrust you to be in charge of tracking things related to Laxus? Why did you suddenly break in? Marshal of the warring states period is very bad. The ghost spider took a few quick breaths and said in a hurry. Ghost Spider, what happened? Garp exploded all of a sudden, and Huo-ran stood up and roared angrily, isn't it that bastard Kaido, who doesn't even want the last old face, dares to shoot at my grandson, I'm going to fuck my mother. Looking at the front and back is not a person. It should be said that the previous moment was completely indifferent. Now watching the ghost spider hurried back, he has completely changed. Garp, who is not calm, rolled his eyes and said, Kapu, I think it's you who don't like the old face, don't stop the ghost spider and let him speak. Clear. Seeing Garp, who was about to run wild, chasing Kaido all over the sea, the ghost spider couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva, and after a bit of relief, said, 10 minutes ago, I received information that it was the Chambord Islands. Something happened on the third island. The Chambord Islands. Warring States was stunned for a moment, and said, Zephyr, there seems to be a chief student, what's the name of Ain, isn't he in the Chambord archipelago? Did the beast pirates attack her? In the eyes of Sengoku, if Luffy is bullied by the beast pirates, Garp, a naval hero, will go berserk. Then if Yin is bullied, I am afraid that Zephyr's actions are no exception. What's more, compared to Garp, Zephyr's family was killed by pirates. A little carelessness, Zephyr's rampage might be even more ferocious than Garp's. Chapter 667, Hidden. No. Ghost Spider hurriedly explained, yes. Pirates, one of the three plagues, Drought Jack's confidant, Hip's head, was beheaded in public in a tavern on the third island in the Chambord Islands. This is the surveillance video of the phone bug that happened. It seems that the super rookie of the West Sea recently, the handsome pirates, the White Horse Cavendish with a reward of 98 million participated in it. What Sengoku and Garp were suddenly stunned. Now on this sea, no matter what, the Navy or the pirates are all eager to hide, suffering from a dull loss, and the beast Kaido, who is full of anger, is worried that his fire will be scattered on his body. Even the Navy headquarters turned a blind eye to the reward order issued by Kaido to hunt down the beasts. It was only a recall order to bring Aang and the others back to the naval headquarters for protection. Kansei. The consensus reached by their navy and Kaido, one of the four emperors, in order to avoid a head-on conflict. However, now suddenly someone runs out and tells them. Some people are not afraid of death. They stab the dragon's ass at such a juncture. Once the fire is burned, Kaido, the beast in his heart, knows that he will definitely become the target of his anger. Riding a horse is more fortunate than fortune. Thinking of this, no matter what was Carp or the Warring States period, they couldn't wait to turn on the monitoring phone bug. They eagerly wanted to know which one of the characters dared to stab the dragon's butt at such a time. Boom! A thunderous explosion resounded. Looking at the surveillance phone worm, and finally interrupted, the picture of the soaring flames, Sengoku and Garp all of a sudden, their faces are full of confusion. After looking at each other, they could see the shock in each other's eyes. The whole body is armed with domineering, 6-style shaving, and the ability to burn fruits that is suspected of being a natural type. He also killed Sip's head with a reward of more than 200 million. That kind of arrogance engraved in his bones, this guy cannot. The existence of ordinary people. Sengoku was the first to speak out. Looking at this one, the strong man who appeared without any warning smashed the four emperors who had offered a reward of more than 200 million as soon as he appeared. Such means and ruthlessness, if not, choose at this juncture, and take action against the beasts of Kaido. So that means, this guy, I am afraid he has some chi. Could it be that it is as hidden as Laxus? Messy thoughts flashed in Sengoku's mind. Faced with the analysis of the Warring States period, Garp also fell into silence, and said after a moment, "No, in the Warring States period, I think that this guy named Escanor is not a natural type with the ability to burn fruit. Don't forget, the burning fruit has fallen, by who? Z is currently the captain of the 2nd and 2nd Division, in the hands of Fire Fist Ace. In the video just now, that guy named Escanor used a fire-like attack. However, the way he is attacked, he chooses to be domineering in full body armor. This alone can rule out the natural system." Regarding Carp's analysis, Sengoku nodded silently and said, "Cap, you are right, but why did this guy suddenly attack Hip's head? That kind of indifference and arrogance that is carved into his bones makes people feel unnatural. In the battle just now, he gave the impression that he hadn't fully exerted his strength yet. If you measure his strength according to the reward, I am afraid it can reach about 500 million. Who was waiting by the side of 500 million, suddenly changed slightly. On this sea, the pirates with a reward of 500 million, placed in the New World, are also very important existences. With outstanding strength can even be crowned with the title of the Great Pirate. Marshal of the Warring States period, will your definition of him be too high?" The ghost spider couldn't help but said. Gao Zongguo raised his brows and said, "Ghost Spider, what you have to consider is too superficial. If you have the strength to defeat Hip's head, but at this juncture, without any confidence, who would be crazy enough to challenge Kaido, the madman?" Speaking of this, Warring States could not help but paused and said, "Unless he is also a lunatic." Madman Ghost Spider couldn't help but fell into silence. Facing the words of the Warring States period, he had no way to refute. As the Warring States said, "Unless you are really crazy, how can you choose to attack the beast pirates at this juncture?" Grumpy. The urgent voice of a phone bug rang suddenly, breaking the dead silence in the office. Everyone's eyes swiped, and their expressions changed dramatically when they saw the calling bug. "The world government calls." Carp raised his brows and said, "Is it empty and immortal?" "I don't know." Warring States shook his head and said, "It's been more than half a year since the last time he contacted me, and now I suddenly initiate a call. Won't something big happen?" While talking, Warring States answered the phone bug and said, "I'm Warring States, what's the matter?" Warring States. I am the 5 old stars. Next, I will announce the list of targets who will inherit the position of the former Shichibukai and the Sand Crocodile. After receiving the list, your navy will be responsible for contacting the target characters. The target recruits new people. Choose, come make up for the loss of Kibukai's strength. A low voice, with an unmistakable taste, came from inside the phone bug. Chapter 668, Madman. A low voice, with an unmistakable taste, came from inside the phone bug. These words fall, no matter. Was a ghost spider, or the look of Sengoku and Garp, also changed dramatically. At the same time, the new world is in the windless zone. The huge deck of the Moby Dick. Late at night, and the banquet on board was still going on. However, most of them gathered in front of the phone bug video. As the head of the 4 emperors, the Whitebeard pirates, in the Chambord Islands, also have their own eyeliner. In particular, during this period of time, so many major events occurred one after another in the Chambord Islands. It can be said that as long as the power reaches a certain level, they will choose to arrange manpower on the island. The first is to help monitor the huge movements of Marin Vando. Second, to be able to get as soon as possible, what new people will appear in the first half of the 4 seas and the Great Waterway. Once they set foot in the new world, they can make a prediction as soon as possible whether it is worth recruiting. During this time, Island Number 3, because of the cadre of the Beast Pirates, the stationing of Hip's head, and the release of a reward quest related to Laxus. Undoubtedly, many people's nerves were affected, and Whitebeard also issued an order for real-time monitoring. Facing this frontal provocation, Kaido finally jumped into the sea and disappeared without a trace, Laxus. They are also eager to know, the teenager known as the Navy Supernova. Be resurrected from the dead by jumping into the sea and jump out to save people because of the Beast Kaido's pursuit order. It was for this reason that Whitebeard got the information right away when Escanor was making trouble on the 3rd island. Dad, this guy seems to be able to handle it with ease. Joes frowned and spoke first. A few years ago, I had a turf war with that guy Jack, and a fight with this ship's head. That guy's strength is very good. If you want to defeat him, it is enough to prove that this guy named Escanor is not easy. Jaws's analysis is correct. The horse nodded and echoed. Only choose to attack the people of the 100 Beast Pirates at this time, this person is really a lunatic. If there is a chance, I can let Ita play 1 or 2 games. If he can be defeated, it can be considered to make up for the gap in challenging Laxus for a while. Having said that, Marco looked at Ace, who was absent-minded, patted his shoulder and said, "Brother Ace, don't worry too much. On this sea, you believe in the way of the strong. I believe that you who have the domineering power of the king and the natural devil fruit will become stronger sooner or later." Yes, Boss Marco is right. We all believe in Ace. You can become a big pirate on your own. Father's position, we do our part. If you want, you have to defeat us. Ace, didn't you say that you want to make Dad the pirate king? Don't let us down. On the huge deck, comforting voices sounded one after another. Even Whitebeard reached out his big hand and patted Ace on the shoulder. Quan Dang comforted him. It can be said that only Rayleigh was in the field, and after watching the surveillance of the phone bug, he showed a look of stunned expression. Compared with other people who were kept in the dark, Rayleigh's first thought, 90% of this person, was Uchiha Ryu. Just by what method, he changed another identity, Rayleigh is unknown. However, at this juncture, there is absolutely no one other than him who can attack Kaido the Beast. Father, the USA island is ahead. A deep voice came from the viewing platform on the main mast. Whitebeard regained his senses, nodded and said, "Well, you guys have worked so hard during this time, so I deliberately took a detour and took the time to go back to my hometown with Sachi." "Dad, you are serious. We and Sachi are like brothers. This distance will not delay anything." The captain of the 13th Division, Atmos the Buffalo, spoke first. Of the captains also nodded in agreement. "Okay, I, Whitebeard, are very lucky to have sons like you. Whitebeard laughed loudly and said, however, the existence of the dark fruit really needs to be kept secret, otherwise, once it is spread out, it will probably make many immortals greedy, and for our Whitebeard pirates, it is also considered as one of them. Shock. By the way, where did that fellow Sachi go? Why didn't he attend the banquet? Can't wait to go back and spend time with his precious son. These words fell, everyone couldn't help but startled. As a pirate and the head of the 4 emperors, every time they meet, a banquet is a routine thing. So, they didn't pay much attention to who participated and who didn't. Now Whitebeard suddenly named Thatch to wake them up. Chapter 669, Captain Thatch is dead. When the banquet started, he seemed a little uncomfortable and went back to his pirate ship to rest. Jose was the first to speak. The 16 commanders of the Whitebeard pirates. However, they also have their own pirate ships to perform some delegated tasks. Otherwise, let the Moby Dick run all over the sea every day to perform some small tasks. I am afraid that Whitebeard's face will not know where to go. Oh, that guy would be uncomfortable too, it's really rare. Whitebeard snorted lightly and said, Jose, you go and inform Thatch, and the others are also preparing to dock. When this matter is over, we will return to Beehive Island. Dad, I'm going now. Jose responded, turned around and planned to leave. However, just after taking a few steps, a staggering figure came over from the stern. It's a big deal. Captain Thatch was killed. The hurried voices roared out without warning. That was originally extremely noisy instantly became, the needle fell and could be heard. Riley's expression changed suddenly. Subconsciously looked at Whitebeard, and his expression changed, letting him know clearly. The Whitebeard pirates are about to change. As a former opponent, Rayleigh knew exactly what Whitebeard's reverse scales, as the head of the 4 emperors, were. Dead son, that, Dad doesn't feel heartbroken, it's just that Rayleigh doesn't know who is crazy enough to do something to the white-bearded godson. Is it for the dark fruit? A messy thought flashed in Rayleigh's mind, looking at a Whitebeard who was crushing a wine bowl. Rayleigh knew clearly that the man who had been silent for a long time had awakened again in this sea. Bang! Whitebeard crushed the wine bowl, dormant, and the domineering arrogance in his body exploded like a frenzy. Angrily roared, Bastard's house, kill Sachi. Pause the banquet and let everyone check it out for me. I want to know right away, who killed Sachi, even if it's the King of Heaven, I must behead him. The rolling voices burst like thunder. Feeling the madness that came out through the body, the expressions of everyone present suddenly changed dramatically. Even Ace, who was absent-minded, suddenly woke up and started to act. For a time, in the face of Sachi's sudden death, the entire Whitebeard pirates became restless. According to Rayleigh, it's the first pirate group to run wild as Kaido. Then the second 4 emperors who run wild as Whitebeard. Who were instantly mobilized. There were dozens of captains of the affiliated pirates. This means that once this incident spreads, half of the sea in the New World will be shaken. 3 days later, a single-masted pirate ship appeared in a certain sea area in the first half of the New World. The small ship, only 2 figures appeared on the deck. Brother Escanor, what are you doing in the first half of the Great Waterway instead of going to the New World to avoid the pursuit of Kaido by the 4 emperors and beasts? Cavendish couldn't help asking. Thinking of what happened 3 days ago, Cavendish's bowels are turning green. He finally understands what it is to strike up a conversation and take him on too. The bounty in his hand, he finally broke 500 million and reached 110 million won not long ago, and Cavendish license could not laugh. If there was no Kaido hanging behind him, he might still be able to burn high incense. The only thought now is how to live longer. I'm going to the capital of 7 waters. Escanor glanced at Cavendish sideways, and said, I advise you, don't follow me, or it will be a big deal. Major events. Cavendish couldn't help but rolled his eyes and said, could it be that you still dislike the Chambord archipelago, isn't the matter on my stall not big enough? Beast Kaido can come out and fuck me at any time. This matter, but you implicated me, and now you are driving me away. You are irresponsible. Speaking of which, Cavendish grabbed the jug next to him, took a sip, and said, I'm on you now. What else can be bigger than provoke Kaido? Looking at Cavendish, who insisted on not leaving, and Long Yu, who used the character template of Escanor, he felt helpless. If Cavendish were to know, what was the purpose of his trip? I'm afraid, right now. It is also possible to jump ship and draw the line. However, since the reminder was also given, Cavendish insisted not to leave, and Long Yu was too lazy to bother. Eyes turned in vain, and followed the outline of the huge city in the distance. Long Yu knew that the capital of Seven Waters was finally coming. In Shachi's mouth, Long Yu learned of Robin's whereabouts. However, to enter the Judiciary Island, it is not that simple. At least, the whirlpool turbulence caused by the Gate of Justice is impossible for ordinary ships to approach. Chapter 670, Pirates. City of Seven Waters. Cavendish was slightly startled, and said, Are you here to replace this broken ship? I've already said that this broken ship is too slow. A little too big waves will be enough to sink the ship. However, do you have money? I heard that the capital of Seven Waters is specialized in getting boats for the Navy, and the price is very expensive. In this sea, if the shipbuilding craftsmanship is purely concerned, the capital of the Seven Waters can be called the best. Between them, they also believe in the iron rule that money is in place and strength is in place. Regardless of a navy or a pirate, as long as they have enough money, they don't care. What is your identity? We'll agree to this transaction. Even Roger, the Pirate King, owns the pirate ship, the Oro Jackson, which was created by Tom, the fisherman in the Seven Waters. Enough to make the Seven Waters city famous. Is it a boat? Glanced a little, and he could already see the moored ships at the port, and said, You are really strange, you are obviously a pirate. If you need a ship, why don't you grab one? I'm afraid it's not your turn to order a pirate ship. Grabbing a pirate ship, Cavendish is stunned. For such a simple, rude and direct solution, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. At least, they are indeed pirates. Why don't you go grab the people in front? Are you pirates? If it's a pirate, please go to number 2, dock number 2. A boatman peered at the watchtower at the mouth of the sea and shouted. The capital of Seven Waters welcomes pirates, and takes the principle of having money as the last word. However, in the face of the Navy headquarters, they still have to rely on the manufacture of warships to make a living. With the Navy headquarters turning a blind eye, the Seven Waters will still choose to divert pirates and warships. Arrange to go to the most secluded number 2 dock. At the same time, let the strongest boatman deal with it. It's a pirate. Long Yu responded at will. Quickly see the boatman to guide. Cavendish glanced helplessly without any intention of taking the helm, then quickly took the helm and drove to the number 2 dock. This time, Long Yushin Changshui came to the capital of Seven Waters, not for shipbuilding and ship grabbing. Instead, it was to get the signposts to the Isle of Fa. According to the information given by Shachi, there are 2 ways to enter Fa Island. First, by recording the hour hand, open the Justice Gate of Fa Island, ride the swirling current of the dark tide, and reach the entrance of Fa Island directly. Second, take the sea train route built by the legendary boatmaker, Tom the Fishman. You can ignore the whirlpool currents and go directly to the Isle of Fa. However, the Gate of Justice was built by Baker Penga. When pushing the world government, the island of Fa, and the great underwater prison into the city, the 3 disrupted the entire sea with the whirlpool of the ocean. Once an ordinary ship sets foot, if the Gate of Justice is not opened, it will be attacked by the current and vortex, and the ship will be directly destroyed. It can be said that the first way is to let Fa Dao take the initiative to open the door of justice, which is simply impossible. What's more, the French island is to reduce the threat from the outside world. Still, pointing to the hands and feet of the clock on the Isle of Phi. not only has the use of timeliness. There are also strict rules for circulation. Once ordinary people are found, they will be charged with having the record hour hand of the Isle of Law. Turn in the record hour hand you got by accident and get a reward. According to Shachi, the recording hour hand of Fa Dao is one of the hardest things to get besides La Fluff. Therefore, this time Long Yu came to the Seven Waters to get the record hour hand, or to find someone to lead the way. Hey, your boat, it looks tattered too, do you need a replacement? A soft voice came from the coast. Long Yu regained his senses, followed the voice, and was the first to catch sight of the old face. Shanfeng Kaku, the second character in the middle. However, the current Shanfeng Kaku has not obtained the animal-type giraffe devil fruit. Therefore, in terms of strength, it is obviously inferior to that after a year and a half. No, I'm here to find someone. Long Yu patted the dust on his body and entered Escanor's character template again, his expression instantly replaced by arrogance. Feeling the temperament of Long Yu, the transformation occurred in an instant, and Cavendish's nerves suddenly tightened. According to the relationship during this period, Cavendish clearly knew that if he was in a coma, he would kill someone with his personality. So now the moment when Long Yu's temperament changes, it means that he has entered the battle mode. According to this inference, this time Long Yu is not here to grab the boat. Instead, he came to seek revenge. Looking for someone. Kaku was slightly startled and said, "The people who come here are all looking for boatmen to make boats. Do you have a candidate for ordering boats in your mind?" As a 9 next to 0, it belongs to one of the highest espionage organizations of the world government. Kaku and Lucci and others have been in the capital of Seven Waters for a long time as boatmen. Even Esbagu, the head of the Seven Waters, could not see through their identities and origins. This made Kaku preconceived about what Long Yu said. "No, I'm here for 9. Escanor spoke abruptly. Chapter 671, Too Fast. The arrogant voice, like thunder at this moment, shook Kaku's nerves. Looking at Escanor's line of sight, his pupils shrank suddenly, and before he had time to think, his right foot suddenly kicked out like lightning. Hurricane, hurricane. Bang, bang. With both hands on the ground, Kaku's whole body spins like a spinning top. The moment both feet cut through the sky, one after another vacuum slash, like a frenzy, headed towards the pirate ship where Escanor was. The violent scene made Cavendish's face change dramatically in an instant. He never thought that the boatman in front of him would be the legendary 9. Cavendish has also heard about this most feared and most powerful espionage organization. The success rate of the rumored mission is 100%. Whatever is targeted by them, no matter what. Ordinary people, or the Revolutionary Army, even pirates, can't escape from their palms. Right now, Escanor can tell at a glance that this boatman is related to 9. This kind of crazy action sending sheep into the tiger's mouth. However, Escanor, who is still unmoved by the vacuum slash that came violently, made Cavendish's face change and helplessly shot. The beautiful sword blue bird. The moment Durand fell into his hands, the cyan blade of the sword slashed out in an instant. When the awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air resounded through the sea, 200 meters apart, 2 unrelenting attacks collided with each other. Bang! The violent collision of air waves swept away on the sea. Looking at this scene, Kaku's figure flickered, and he quickly pulled away and retreated, intending to widen the distance and clarify things at the same time. Also secretly press the emergency phone bug. Bang! The sound of the slashing slams exploded like thunder. Gang winds swept across all directions, rolling up large tracts of sand and dust. Kaku was retreating quickly, but his eyes were always locked on the dust. He clearly knew that as long as the other party made a move, the dust in front of him would float and move. With enough distance, the card will shoot in time to snipe. Faced with this, as soon as he opened his mouth, he revealed his identity. The unknown guy, Kaku's mind, appeared 3 days ago, and obtained information from Judicial Island. They have been lurking here for a long time, but it does not mean that they have been disconnected from the outside world. As one of the many islands in this sea, they still regularly go to Bruno's tavern to exchange information. If he remembered correctly, this guy who popped up out of nowhere is the goal of the world government, and it is also the cause of chaos in the Chambord Islands, the third island, people of unknown origin. Thinking of this, many thoughts flashed in Kaku's mind. Whether or not Escanor can be beheaded afterward is another matter. However, it is absolutely impossible to let the two boatmen who stayed behind and the trash hiding in the dark leave alive on this pier. Without getting Pluto, this secret cannot be easily revealed. Chaotic thoughts flashed through Kaku's mind. The next moment, an inexplicable chill sprouted from his spine. The skills and life and death experience of the past battles made Kaku's nerves tense suddenly. I didn't have time to think about it. I hurried to lock the flying sand in front of my eyes. Bang! Escanor, standing on the bow deck, tensed the muscles of his feet to the extreme, and slammed down. When the entire pirate ship sank, the deck shattered. Even Cavendish was thrown into the air by this sudden burst of strength. The next moment, before they could react, Escanor had already burst out of the void like a cannonball. Bang! Ripples in the air surged open, and the distance of dozens of meters was only shortened in the blink of an eye. Looking at Escanor, who smashed the pirate ship with a kick of his feet, his pupils quickly enlarged. A simple thought flashed through Kaku's mind. Too fast. Facing this violent blow, Kaku had no way to hide, and kicked out again with his right foot like lightning. In this case, the only way to win the variable is to attack it. Lanjiao, round off. Spray, two vacuum choppers burst out in an instant. As the two sides drew closer, he appeared in front of Escanor in the blink of an eye. Of breaking through the air resounded through the sky. However, in the face of this scene, Escanor raised his head slightly, the muscles of his feet tensed again, and he stepped on it suddenly. Moonwalk in the sky. Bang! The sound of gas explosion suddenly sounded. At the moment when Escanor's upper body was covered with a domineering aura of armament, facing the incoming vacuum slash, he didn't have the slightest evasion and defense. The next moment, under the watchful eyes of the public, it collided head-on. Bang! A dull gas explosion sounded, and two vacuum slashes smashed into pieces before the eyes of the public. The simple and rude scene made Kaku's pupils shrink suddenly. This blow is round off. In his hands, it is one of the best killer moves. Chapter 672, Too Disappointing. Also imagined that Escanor would use various means to resist. However, this scene in front of him subverted his cognition. Is this the truth of 9? So disappointing. Escanor instantly appeared in front of Kaku. The dark armament color is domineering and quickly covers the fist. The 5 fingers of the right hand clenched suddenly, without any fancy. Hit Kaku head-on in the stomach. Bang! With a punch, the giant force is vented like a frenzy. Kaku felt as if he had been hit head-on by a sea king. The whole person flew upside down like a sandbag, took a big mouth, and blood gushed out. Bang! Kaku smashed on the iron arm of the dock dozens of meters away. The dull metal collision sound exploded like thunder. The huge dock, at this moment, seems to be a huge earthquake. Looking at Kaku, who was knocked out in one blow and slumped on the ground. Cavendish, who landed on the port, and the figure hiding in the dark almost split his eyes. I have never seen a pig run, and I have eaten pork. As for the members of 9, they do not know the details. However, they have already heard of the murderous name. However, the scene in front of us now gives people the illusion that the pig has lost its forefoot. Punch was smashed. Is Escanor too strong? 9 Teakai, since it's here, don't hide. Escanor suddenly turned back and looked at the void not far away. An inexplicable scene once again shook everyone's nerves. Open the air door. PFF'd. The fluctuations of the air surged open behind Escanor, turning into an air door out of thin air, which was pushed open directly. A figure with a cow in black tights, like a ghost, protruded from the air door. Devil fruit ability. Cavendish's expression changed suddenly. He didn't arrive at all, and there was a second person in 9 here. However, what shocked Cavendish even more was Escanor, who could even catch the enemy hidden in the air in advance. Broken iron. As soon as Bruno appeared, the muscles in his right hand suddenly tensed, turning into an iron block. Without any bells and whistles, his right hand slashed down towards Escanor's shoulder with a knife in his hand. Bang! Powerful slashing, causing turbulent air ripples. The huge impact made the ground under Escanor's feet shatter. One after another hideous cracks, like spiders, spread like a web. The seemingly incomparable blow is enough to easily shatter the rock. However, it landed in front of him, like an iron tower, on a stature with muscles protruding like a rock. Everyone present couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. In the face of such a fierce attack, the tower body in front of him gave the illusion of being motionless. Are you tickling me? Escanor raised his eyebrows sideways and met Bruenor's gaze. If this is your confidence, then it's my turn. 6-style steel fist. PFF'd. The 5 fingers were suddenly clenched, and the moment when the armed color was domineering, it seemed that even the air was forced to burst. The next moment, there is no trace of fancy, under this close distance. Escanor struck with a bang. Bang! The blockage of the air seems to be, at this moment, it is also bombed. Under the ripples that stirred up the air along the way, Bruno felt a fierce and incomparable wind blowing head-on. At this moment, it seemed that even the skin of the face was blown into shape. A gust of cold air is even more at the spine, straight to the forehead. Fool, my defense is among us. But the strongest. Bruno roared angrily, his hands and fingers suddenly tightened, his muscles bulging like steel. Iron steel. In the 6 forms, in addition to the basic skills, there are also 6 forms strengthening skills, and 6 forms profound truth. Among them, being able to be selected as 9, not only requires mastering the basic skills of the 6 styles, but also must master the 6 styles of strengthening skills. That Bruno is using at the moment is to extend on the iron block, and it has an extended defense skill with stronger defense. Bang! The dark armed color is domineering, and the fists covered, instantly fell on Bruno's abdomen. That firm face, in an instant, became stiff and solidified. The next moment, under the distorted expression, the whole person flew upside down like a cannonball. Bang! Under the heavy hammer, the turbulent air ripples, like a wave rewinding. Bruno instantly hit the wall 100 meters away. The huge impact force directly smashed the thick wall. Looking at the moment before, Bruno was full of confidence in his own defense. In an instant, like a piece of paper, it was directly defeated. It can be said that now he is not only dumbfounded. I'm afraid I'm still doubting life. One punch. Another punch. Philo reminds you. Read 3 things to watch the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 playmates, find 99 novels and LT. Please keep this paragraph for collection, otherwise the collection of IP will be banned. And GT. Chapter 673, True Love. Cavendish, who was present, and the people hiding in the dark, were all stunned. They never thought that the dignified 9 would be so playful in front of Escanor. He couldn't even take a punch from the opponent. If it were them, I'm afraid it wouldn't be too much in the end. Cough Escanor, if you dare to take action against us, if it spreads to the Navy headquarters and the world government, it will be a big sin. Kaku was the first to get up from the ruins. As a 6-style powerhouse, Kaku didn't go into a coma directly, which is better than Bruno who lost consciousness. However, looking at that embarrassed posture, he still lost most of his combat effectiveness. Kaku, don't have uterine cavity with me. Escanor dissipated the breath of his body and walked towards Kaku. I'm here just to confirm with you Nico Robin's whereabouts. Nicole Robin. Cavendish was slightly startled, and he finally realized that he was completely kept in the dark. However, to be able to turn 9 over for a woman. This is true love. You're here for Nico Robin. Kaku's face changed dramatically. I thought that woman was just alone, I didn't expect to have this relationship with you. However, you can reveal my identity as soon as you meet. It seems that you have a very strong intelligence network. It should be clear what is behind Nico Robin. Speaking of which, Kaku took out one with his backhand and offered a reward order. Because you are making troubles in the Chambord Islands, the world government and the naval headquarters have already discussed this. This is the bounty order just released. You also have a bounty. Cavendish was slightly startled, and when he saw the amount on the reward, his pupils could not help shrinking. 3 to 300 million reward. The first reward, it started 300 million inches. Cavendish looked in disbelief. No, it should be said that he can't wait now, carrying a knife and Escanor to death. Originally, he was eyeing the first person in the supernova. Now, it is rare to boil the skeleton demon into the sea and the fire fist ace to become the captain of the 2nd Division of Whitebeard. Under the hope of the stars and the moon, a blank period finally appeared. Now there is $1 billion Escanor. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe in seeing it? Goddamn Escanor. Cavendish clenched Durandal in his hands. What's wrong? Escanor back. He glanced sideways with his head. This light-hearted attitude made Cavendish, who was looking at him, couldn't help but shudder. Looking at the sandbag-like fist, it was like pouring a basin of cold water on his head, and he said with a dry smile, I want to ask you, do you want to eat apples? I'm pretty good at peeling apples. Looking at Cavendish, who was stunned in seconds, Long Yu, who was in the template, couldn't help but rolled his eyes. Before he could speak again, Kaku's voice had already sounded again. Escanor, not long ago, our espionage system added a new task, which is to convey to you the decision from the world's official government. You have shown great strength on the Chambord Islands. However, he has also provoked Kaido, one of the 4 emperors, the beasts. He can take action against Laxus, who has the naval headquarters as his backing, and may also take action against you. So, the 5 old stars give you a choice to replace the sand crocodile and become the new Chihuahua candidate. As long as you promise, just because of Nicole Robin, the offense against us 9 will be written off. The slightly long-sounding voice seemed to be filled with magical sounds at this moment, and it echoed in the port for a long time and could not be dissipated. Starting price is 300 million. It is even invited by the world government to replace the vacant Shichibukai position. This feeling is that he is the king of the debut. Thinking of this, Cavendish almost crushed his fingers. People are more mad than people. Chihuahua. Escanor raised his brows and said, I think, apart from the benefits, you should have other requirements. And responsibilities often coexist. What's more, for the 5 old stars hidden behind the world government. That is completely the existence of the geese passing by and also pulling out the light. It would be very difficult to let you be Chihuahua without paying enough value. Escanor, you are indeed a smart person. To become the new Shichibukai, you need to promise to bring back the head of crocodile after the fact. Seeing Escanor's rhetorical question, Kaku secretly breathed a sigh of relief, looked around and said, at the same time, silence all those who know my identity here. As long as the other party is interested, there are prerequisites for negotiation. What's more, due to the privileges possessed by Chihuahua, for any pirate to have this halo, it is a sweet and delicious existence. With Kaku's eyes, no one will be willing to give up the fat that comes to their mouths. Silencing Cavendish's nerves suddenly tightened. No, it should be said that the people present are no exception. Chapter 674, I Still Like Women. After seeing Escanor, One Punch Man like strength with his own eyes. No one believes that they can escape alive under the eyes of the other party. All eyes turned around, and the moment it landed on him, an inexplicable suppressed aura filled the air. Even Cavendish couldn't help clenching Durand in his hands. They desperately want to know what decision Escanor will make. It feels like fish on a cutting board. For a time, the huge port was shrouded in an inexplicably depressing atmosphere. All eyes were locked on Escanor. Sorry, I still like women. Escanor raised his brows and looked at Kaku sideways. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with a magic sound, hitting the depths of the human soul. Looking at Escanor, who refused Shichibukai's position with an arrogant and indifferent expression. The people present looked in disbelief. Women, compared to status. Could it be that, Nico Robin, is it more fragrant than Shichibukai's position? Escanor, you know what you're talking about. Kaku's expression suddenly became anxious. The location of Chiwahai is simply a dream for you pirates. The 5 old stars have given conditions, but this condition can be completed slowly in the future. As long as you nod and agree now, you will have privileges that cannot be compared with others. You are now turning down this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a woman. It's not worth it at all. Don't forget how deeply involved Nico Robin is. If you have to stand up for her, what will be waiting for you will be the world government and the naval headquarters, endlessly chasing and killing. Speaking of which, Kaku eagerly looked at Escanor and said, you are a smart person, you should be very clear about which is more important. Facing the generous conditions given by Kaku, in Cavendish's eyes, it is also a sweet existence. If it was him, he would face the temptation of recruiting security. I am afraid that for a moment or 3, it is really impossible to refuse. Sorry, I'm a lunatic. Escanor said suddenly. Now, should you be able to tell me about Nico Robin's whereabouts and where is she now? Crazy. This horse is crazy. Hearing the words echoing in his mind, Kaku felt a huge shock. They never expected that Escar would give such a reply. However, there is nothing wrong with this. The way a lunatic behaves is completely beyond common sense. Escanor, you really are a lunatic. Kaku took a deep breath, suddenly raised his head to meet his eyes, and said, however, you are too late. Nico Robin has been sent to Fa Island, and a special person is responsible for guarding. As long as you are a person in this sea, you should know very well that this Fa Island is the righteous gateway of the world's main government. For 800 years, no one has dared to go wild. That woman, after being sent to the Fa Island, means that she will never be able to turn herself around, so she will just wait for her sentence to be pronounced. In the original book, the island of Fa has never been breached since its establishment. It is known as the Shield of Justice. Once the world's official government regards it as a guilty person, it means that he will never be able to leave alive when he sets foot on this island that never sleeps. Escanor is looking for Nico Robin by name. But in Kaku's eyes, this is simply unrealistic. It's good to know her whereabouts. Escanor said lightly. It's good to know. Kaku was stunned for a moment. However, he did not wait for him to respond. A rapid air fluctuation sounded suddenly. Air door. Ohm. The air behind Kaku suddenly oscillated, and the air door was suddenly pushed open. Bruno with blood on the corners of his mouth stuck out and grabbed Kaku. Without any hesitation, he dragged Kakulian and pulled it into the air door. The whole process was not at all muddled, before Kaku reacted. The air door was suddenly closed. Bang! The air gate disappeared into the void out of thin air. Looking at this violent scene, Cavendish suddenly woke up and said in a hurry, Escanor, don't hurry to chase. If you let them go, what happened here will be reported. In Cavendish's eyes, the horror, Escanor was a one-punch thing. If one punch doesn't fix it, then another punch is fine. But it was Escanor, not him. Now Cavendish, obviously tied to a broken boat in pursuit of love. He believed that Nine would not let him go. Thinking of the refusal that Escanor gave him to leave not long ago. It just made Cavendish regret his bowels. Let them run. Escanor replied indifferently, they are of some use to me. Aren't you leaving? Go. Cavendish can't wait now. With the Durand in his hand, he will peel a few more apples and let out a bad breath. Looking at Escanor, who seemed to have done something trivial, he gritted his teeth and said, I want to leave too. However, now that you let 9 go, they will tie me and you together, and they will never give up their pursuit of me, so you have to be responsible. Chapter 675, Are You Crazy? As a companion, I want to know what your plans are next. The madness of Escanor's provocation 9. Cavendish thought about it and left. However, when he thought about it, with his current strength alone, he would have absolutely no power to fight back against the world's official government. Cavendish still decided to hug Escanor's thigh. I'm going to Fahima to save people now. Escanor said arrogantly. If you decide, I can take you too. Is it okay to go to the Isle of Phi? Cavendish subconsciously nodded in agreement, then suddenly woke up and roared, You said you were going to Fa Island to save people. Escanor, are you crazy? No, you lunatic, do you know what you are thinking? That is the portal of the world's righteous mansion. Since its creation, no one has ever been able to leave. You are going to Fa Island now, this is completely to die. I know you're joking, Escanor, it's not funny. Having said this, Cavendish's smile was very bitter. Looking at Escanor who looked indifferent. He knew that he was not only on a pirate ship. Moreover, after being sold, it is still, Mizizi counts money for others. Sorry, I wasn't joking. Escanor replied lightly. Before he could speak again, an ethereal system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you have obtained 10% fidelity, and the current fidelity is 40%. The system is unlocking randomly, please wait a moment. The sudden scene made Long Yu, who was in Escanor's character template, a little surprised. I thought it would take a little time to achieve 40% fidelity, but I didn't expect it at all. Before heading to the Isle of Fa, the chance came to me by chance. However, after thinking about it carefully, Long Yu also guessed that he was probably the one who said that for a woman, he was willing to talk like a lunatic. Lick the existence of nothing. Disappear directly into the world. Now that Long Yu has obtained the character template of Escanor, could it be that he has to go further and further on this dog-licking road? Escanor, what are you thinking? Do you regret it? Cavendish hurriedly asked. If you regret it, if you catch up now, you may be able to save it. Being a chihuahua is actually quite fragrant. Thinking of everything that happened just now, Cavendish still had a dreamlike illusion. Now God gives him another chance. The motherfucker will never get on this pirate ship. No, I'll save Nico Robin anyway. Long Yu quit the template character influence and said, since she chose to depend on me. Then, I will never watch her helplessly and be taken away by the people of the world's official government. Having said that, Long Yu looked back at Cavendish and said, I don't think you want to. One day, you will be abandoned. Cavendish was stunned, with a feeling that he couldn't refute. As a captain and a rookie at the same time, Cavendish went out to sea with a passion and never thought about such deep problems. As Long Yu said, if one day he falls into the hands of the Navy, or the world's official government, someone who would rescue his messy thoughts flashed in his mind, and Cavendish's expression changed. Finally, he took a deep breath, picked up his bangs, and said smugly, Don't worry, I will go with you, Fa Dao, it's not a good place. In Cavendish's eyes, at this juncture, he could say such words. How handsome he is, he can totally figure it out. If you don't die this time, come back alive. Not good to say, but it can also bring the fame to a new level. Let your beauty spread more widely in this sea. I don't need a tow bottle. Long Yu replied indifferently, his eyes turned in vain, and he landed on the broken hull not far away, and said, Lanchi, when are you hiding? Come out for me. Still, you want me to invite you out myself. The low voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with a magical sound, which made Frankie's nerves tense all of a sudden. Even Cavendish, who was planning to refute, was startled. They have already seen that Long Yu can easily perceive the enemy's means. However, even the opponent's name can be easily revealed. This feel like a foul. Escanor, do you know him? Cavendish couldn't help but ask. Frankie couldn't hold back either. He came out in the dark and said, do you know me? No. Long Yu glanced lightly and said, I don't know you, but I know everything about you. If it weren't for you, Mr. Tom, I wouldn't have died. Chapter 676. A reward of 300 million. Frankie's expression suddenly stiffened. Immediately, he rushed in front of Long Yu with a stride, and a pair of mechanical arms directly grabbed Long Yu's collar. The violent scene made Cavendish slightly startled. In his eyes, it wasn't the shock of Frankie's reaction. Instead, it's because of his stupidity. After seeing Long Yu's methods with his own eyes, this impulsive action of pulling his collar. It is not allowed to be simply and rudely rewarded with a punch. Facing Cavendish's interested gaze, Frankie's hands, an inch away from the collar, suddenly stiffened in the air. When he was close at hand, meeting this arrogant gaze, Frankie couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Recalling the awesome nine just now, who was punched one by one, he hurriedly said, your collar is wrinkled, I'll tidy it up for you. Boss Frankie, is this our goal this time? However, this little broken boat doesn't seem to be enough to see. Two figures flashed out in the dark. In the city of Seven Waters, the members of the Frankie family were all recruited boatmen who were rejected by Esbagu. The bad guy who was drawn into the family by Frankie. Earn rewards by dismantling ships and selling their parts. However, due to the lack of legality, most of the French family conduct their activities by robbing pirates' ships and other methods. And cop who suddenly jumped out, wearing black leather pants, and wearing sunglasses. Frankie's eyes lit up, and he threw his backhand directly to the back of the two of them. Shut up, this is the boss of Escanor, but there is a reward of 300 million. I just wanted to tidy up his collar. Frankie hurriedly explained. A reward of 300 million inches. Zanbai and Cop's expressions turned pale all of a sudden. They finally know why the big brother, who has always been fearless, is so complimented. If they had known earlier, the person in front of them would have a reward of 300 million. Don't call me the boss, even my father can get away with it. Okay, don't give me nonsense here. Long Yu said to Frankie, I'm going to Fa Island now, and I need to take the sea train. You can lead me on the way. To the Isle of Phi. Zanbai was slightly startled, and said, Boss Scarno, the sea train can indeed go to Fa Island. However, that route is not something that ordinary people can take. I heard that the people who go to Fa Island are all prisoners. If the boss is going sightseeing, it is better to take other routes. What to see? Slapped Zanbai on the back of the head again, and said, Boss Escanor, he is going to save people. However, the sea train is running, but they won't give up and take you to the Isle of Law. I have a way to send you there, but only if you tell me why you know about Mr. Tom. For the death of his teacher, Frankie has always been brooding. Thinks that if it wasn't for the ship he randomly made that day, and the trial warship sent to attack the French island was stolen, Tom would not have to blame him. Sentenced to be executed by shooting. Right now, as soon as Long Yu opened his mouth, he pointed out the relationship between Tom and him. This undoubtedly touched Frankie's nerves. Looking at Frankie with a desperate look, Long Yu pondered for a while, then said, Do you want to see Tom again? Goodbye. Frankie was stunned, and immediately asked excitedly, Boss Escanor, you said let me meet Mr. Tom. It's Mr. Tom, is he still alive? Answer me quickly. The hurried voices echoed in the port. Frankie, who was a big boss, screaming very smoothly, and his integrity seemed to be lost, Cavendish was full of contempt. However, when I saw Long Yu mentioning the word Tom, I lost control of my emotions. Cavendish knew very well that there were probably other stories in it. However, in Cavendish's eyes, it is more important, but what is the relationship between Long Yu and Tom? At the same time, is Tom really still alive in this world? Or, in order to go to the Judiciary Island, Long Yu made up an excuse and deceived Frankie to help the big port, and the atmosphere suddenly became depressed. Everyone's eyes turned and locked on Long Yu's body. Stop talking about Frankie and Cavendish. For Zanbai and Cop, over the years, I have always seen that one day, their boss smiled and held a wine glass, after getting rid of their tracking, disappeared alone for 24 hours. Every time I come back, I have a tired look on my face. At first, they thought that Frank, who became an Iron Man, could develop in what direction. However, over time, it was discovered that there was no Iron Man's reputation in the land of Smoke Willows. This made them gradually understand what Frankie had been doing in the 24 hours he was missing. As soon as Long Yu opened his mouth, he threw Tom out. This undoubtedly pried their nerves. No, Mr. Tom is already dead. Long Yu replied lightly. Chapter 677, Meeting the Dead. Seeing that his expression suddenly became lonely, with a slightly self-deprecating expression, Frankie continued, if you are willing to agree to the deal, I can still let you meet, but after so many years, what is the success rate? I can't guarantee it. Meet the dead. Frankie was stunned. No, it should be said that even Cavendish and the others were full of disbelief. In their eyes, the feeling of Long Yu right now is as if he is talking nonsense in a serious manner. Isn't it nonsense to meet with the dead? Whether or not to meet is your own decision. If I really want to insist on going to the French island, I believe you can't refuse my request. Long Yu glanced at it lightly. The choice is in your own hands. Frankie's face changed again. After seeing it with his own eyes, after Long Yu punched a 9, he clearly knew that there was no falsehood in his words mixed with threats. If Long Yu, he would really use tough tactics and use Zanbai and others as hostages to threaten him for help. Frankie has no right to refuse. Boss Frankie. Zanbai stopped talking. However, he was quickly stopped by Frankie's detective and said, I promise to make a deal with you, but I hope you can keep your promise and not do anything to my people. Don't worry. Replied indifferently, looked at the time, and said, there are still 3 hours before noon. First go to Mr. Tom's tomb, complete the transaction with you, and then send. I will go to Fa Island, lest you call me Empty Glove White Wolf. The fishman who had been dead for 10 years, Long Yu could not guarantee that he could use the Bone King to revive the dead and come back to life. However, as long as the fishman Tom has a strong obsession after his death, Long Yu still has the confidence to forcibly summon his soul within the Yellow Spring. The most important thing is that when the fidelity of Escanor's character template reaches 40%, he will get a reward. Of Escanor, and I am the only one in the sky and the world. This is the special magic physique that Escanor obtained after being attached to the power of the sun in the original 7 deadly sins. With the passage of time, the more noon, the stronger his power will be. When 1 minute reaches noon, Escanor is known as the strongest being among them. At that moment, he will be regarded as non-existent. Pity that the system rewarded to Long Yu as the only one in the sky and the world, obviously missing a minute at noon. However, for him now, it is enough to deal with Fa Dao and his party. Go to Mr. Tom's grave first. Fran. She couldn't help but startled, and looked at Long Yu with a face full of surprise. At first, after hearing Long Yu open his mouth and break the relationship between him and Mr. Tom, he was extremely shocked. At the back, Long Yu threatened to let him meet Mr. Tom. That moment, his mind was completely hot, and he subconsciously agreed to the transaction with Long Yu. Now that he calmed down, there was a bit of bitterness in his heart. The dead is bullshit. However, the arrow had to be sent on the string, according to Long Yu's last statement, even if he refused. Huge gap in strength with 1 punch and 1 9, even if Long Yu gave him a bad check, let him go to Judicial Island first. Frankie still couldn't refuse. However, as soon as Long Yu opened his mouth, he threatened to let him meet his long-dead teacher first. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he would never have believed it. Could it be that he really had a way? Frankie couldn't help but look at Long Yu one more time. Looking at this man with muscular tendons and an arrogant look on his face, the hope in his heart was ignited again. Other hand, in the capital of the Seven Waters, in the office of Espejo. Wearing glasses and wearing black silk stockings, Khalifa looked down at the document in her hand. During the time she was lurking by Espejo's side, she checked any documents that came to hand from the office every day. Although, the chances of finding any clues about the design of Hades are almost impossible. However, in order to end this undercover life, Khalifa will not give up this boring, day-to-day behavior. Who? Khalifa raised her head suddenly. She chose this time to infiltrate Espejo's office to investigate the whereabouts of Hades. It is clear that Espejo will leave the office and go to a place at a certain time every day. According to Espejo's living habits over the years, he should have half an hour before returning to the office. Of footsteps suddenly sounded, causing Khalifa's eyes to suddenly become sharper. They nine spent so much effort in order to get the king's manufacturing blueprint, and lurked here. She didn't want to fall short at this juncture. Khalifa, hurry up and contact Lucci, our lurking mission failed. Kaku supported Bruno, who was stumbling, and turned in directly from the window. Looking at the embarrassed two, Khalifa's pupils shrank slightly. In 9, Carly's strength is like the bottom of the existence. Chapter 678, Mission Leaked. However, she knew very well, except for Rob Lucci, who is known as the most powerful weapon in the world in the past 800 years. Yamake's Kaku is definitely one of the best out of 9. Paired with Bruno, who has the superhuman door fruit. In the capital of Seven Waters, this sea area is located in the first half of the Great Waterway. Not their opponents at all, let alone hitting them hard. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Khalifa would never have believed it. However, what worries Khalifa the most at the moment is the task of spending years lurking and searching for clues about Hades. Kaku, you said the mission was leaked. Who shot you? That's a provocation to the world's official government. As the world's most powerful spy organization, second only to Zero. Khalifa knew very well that they represented the face of the world's righteous government. As the world's most powerful spy organization, second only to Zero. Khalifa knew very well that they represented the face of the world's righteous government. Now the other party actually knows that they dare to attack under their identities. That is to openly tore his face and confront them with the official government of the world. This kind of person, if not a brainless lunatic, is a strong person on one side. It's Escanor. Kaku put the injured Bruno on the sofa, took a breath, and said anxiously, he came for Nico Robin, and at the moment of meeting, he directly broke my identity. Thinking of the scene of the fight just now, Kaku's scalp is still numb. One punch knocked out their proud killer. One punch knocked them out. That completely subverted their cognition. However, Kaku was more concerned about why their identities were leaked. Was Nico Robin's arrest leaked? Escanor. Khalifa couldn't help but said, isn't he the initiator of the chaos in the Chambord Islands 3 days ago? The world government also proposed to invite Chiwahai to replace the vacancy of the sand crocodile. Why would he take action against you? Why don't you tell him this? In Khalifa's eyes, Shichibukai's invitation was like a sweet pastry. Except for a very few pirates, when I heard this invitation, it was a yawn, and my chin was full. Now Kaku and Bruno have been beaten by Fat, this is unscientific. Seeing Khalifa's face makes sense. Of course, Kaku smiled bitterly, I had the same idea as you at first. However, that guy is a total lunatic. For Nico Robin's sake, he even disdains Shichibukai's position. Most importantly, he is arrogant. After learning that Nicole Robin was sent to Justice Island, he didn't stop us at all from escaping, giving people a very strange feeling. Strange feeling? Khalifa was slightly startled, and said, Kaku, what do you feel strange when you say it? You won't tell me that he might go to the Isle of Phi to save people, right? In Khalifa's eyes, the establishment of Fa Island is an existence that has never been breached in the past 800 years. The Navy garrison alone has reached tens of thousands of people. Not to mention, it also has natural vortex defenses such as the Gate of Justice. And various troops under strict guard. As one of the face of the world's main government, Fa Dao, unless it is a fool, absolutely no one will run to seek death. However, now Kaku told her, there is a kind of strange feeling, is there really a fool in this world? Maybe he is pretending. Said after a moment of silence. Long history of 800 years, as the face of the world's official government, it is known as the island that never sleeps. Based on this historical background alone, Kaku subconsciously acquiesced to Khalifa's rebuttal. Facing the island of Phi with such a defensive front, unless you are a fool. Otherwise, no one would go to the island to run wild. Kaku, don't worry too much, this time Lucci was recruited to capture Nico Robin, and now you have found out that Nico Robin and Escanor have a deep relationship, which is an important credit. 1, and perhaps offsetting, the mission failed this time. Khalifa set up her glasses and changed the conversation. What's more, we have been lurking in the Seven Waters capital. For such a long time, we still haven't found the whereabouts of Pluto. I'm afraid Pluto is not here. Combining the factors and inferring, I don't think the above will take anger on us. Looking at the eloquent Khalifa who was analyzing, Bruno who was lying on the sofa couldn't help but say, Khalifa, don't forget, our boss is a fool. However, if Lucci is willing to say a few good words to us, maybe this matter can be saved 1 or 2 times. Facing Bruno's utterance, Khalifa was unable to refute for a moment. As the highest commander of 9, he has only 9 Dao strength, which is lower than ordinary people. If this kind of thing spreads out. Chapter 679, Going is also being abused. That's totally humiliating people in their faces. The most important thing, in their eyes, if Spandam is not because of the blessings of his father's relationship with the Halo. Still an idiot with no IQ. If Spandam really insists on prosecuting them. They also can't eat and walk around. Okay, it's a waste of time for us to discuss here. Hurriedly said, before Espagu has not returned, let's take the sea train and return to Fa Island. Now get in touch with Lucci and let him deal with Spandam for a while. Facing Kaku's proposal, Khalifa and Bruno nodded in agreement. As Khalifa, who was in charge of communication, he took out the phone bug with his backhand and dialed directly. La Island, built on the tallest judicial tower among the 3 major islands. In the huge conference hall, 4 or 5 figures sat sparsely on the sofa. One of them, a purple-haired man wearing a mask, was sitting at the desk. Looking at the report on the desktop, his face lit up with joy. Lucci, I'm very happy that you can capture Nico Robin this time. This is the official government of the world. The devil's son who has been chasing for 20 years is now in my hands. I am afraid that this time I will be able to rank among 0. Spandam watched excitedly, standing in front of the desk, above the burly figure with an indifferent face. As a 9th, Spandam is only 9 in Dao. He has always believed in the truth that there is no problem with his own garbage, the most important thing is to have enough rights, and there is no garbage under his command. Called Rob Lucci, the most powerful human weapon in the French island for 800 years, is simply the ace of his trump cards. HMPH, Sir Spandam, you're just making a fuss, facing a mere woman, wouldn't it be better to leave it to us? Who is slender and has 2 long black beards, said dissatisfiedly. Suddenly sending Lucci back in the capital of 7 Waters, in case that break 5, and the mission is leaked, it will be more than the loss. Although, I have long known that this task could not be completed, but I also really want Lucci and Kaku, so don't stay on the Judiciary Island. Having said this, Gabra covered his mouth and said, Lucci, I'm sorry, I just like to tell the truth, I just don't want to make you spend a lot of time on unfinished tasks. Anything goes wrong. Otherwise, at this juncture, if something goes wrong, you are wasting your efforts. Now, as a ninth, Gabu is the third strongest taijutsu after Rob Lucci and Kaku. In addition to being proficient in the extension skills of iron blocks, he also has the habit of lying, and he prefers to compete with Rob Lucci and Kaku for the first person. Right now, the task of capturing Nico Robin is a huge credit. However, Spandam chose to bring Rob Lucci back. For him, it is undoubtedly a kind of contempt and shame. Gabra, don't challenge Lucci again. The owl said coldly, you have indeed become stronger, but the current Lucci has 370 strength. You only have 190 Dao strength, but the difference is too big, and you will be abused if you go. I won't say it out, but things will get out. The owl who opened his mouth and put the chain on, showing no mercy, Gabra's face became anxious and said, Owl, your hand is absolutely inaccurate. Also, last time, you promised not to tell me about my being dumped. The next day, the whole Fahima knew about it. I'm going to kill you. No, my hand is accurate. You all believe that Sir Spandam has only 9 points of Dao strength, but a normal person has 11. Also, my mouth is the strictest, and I will never tell others what is right or wrong. Speaking, the owl pulled the chain on its mouth again. However, as long as people who are familiar with owls know well, he is the first person to talk. You bastard owl, shut up for me, as a superior, I don't need to fight at all. Spandam roared loudly. Also, I have an elephant sword that takes devil fruit, and it's not something ordinary people can compare to. Looking at the furious Spandam, the people present were already used to it. As a newspaper organization second only to Zero, to be able to join, the minimum foundation is to be proficient in 6 styles. In the original work, there is a newcomer known as the Newcomer King, who is only proficient in 3 styles, after being defeated. Was directly obliterated by Lucci, and Spandam did not pursue it at all afterwards. It can be said that in the 9th, one's own strength is the fundamental. Even Spandam, who is the commander, also relies on this. Okay, Sir Spandam, if Nico Robin's mission is over, I should also return to the 7 Waters and continue the next mission. Rob Lucci said indifferently. Chapter 680, Double Happiness. Icebagu's approval for me is not very much. If the time is delayed, with Asbagu's caution, some clues may be found. As a hidden mission for several years, Rob Lucci has already figured out Asbagu's character. In Lucci's eyes, they couldn't find any clues about Hades' design, which was entirely due to Asbagu's caution. HMPH, that old guy, if he hadn't been worried about spooking the grass, I would have killed him with 1 shot. Spandam slapped the table angrily and said, Lucci, this time you are also considered to have made a big contribution. As long as you can get the design of Hades, I will take you to Zero, and by that time, we will be able to enjoy endless prosperity and wealth. During this time, as long as Spandam thought about this, he could wake up with a smile while falling asleep. That was a wish that even his father had struggled for most of his life to achieve. Right now, even the son of the devil who had escaped for 20 years could fall into their hands. This gave Spandam a kind of urge to approach this goal infinitely. Mosamoxi, emergency contact, I'm Khalifa. The rapid phone bug rang out without warning. The nerves of everyone present were suddenly shaken. Spandam was stunned for a moment, then his face showed joy, and he said excitedly, it's the emergency contact of Khalifa, it won't be a good thing, get the whereabouts of Hades. In Spandam's eyes, the emergency phone worm had not rang for a long time. Right now, it suddenly sounded, and the first thing that came to mind in his mind was this one. Sir Spandam, don't rejoice too soon, in case it's just empty joy. Gabra rolled her eyes in dismay. Robin, who had escaped for 20 years, was caught by Rob Lucci, and if they even got the blueprint of Hades. The days that followed, for Gabra, who was always competitive. Not only was he overwhelmed by the strength of the battle, but he was also overwhelmed to the point of being unable to turn around. Let's talk on the phone first. Rob Lutch frowned and reached out to pick up the phone bug. I'm Lucci. If Khalifa has something to do, I need to use this phone bug to contact me. In Spandam's eyes, Khalifa's urgent contact is a double happiness. However, in Lucci's eyes, Chubagu saw through his identity. Otherwise, no, as soon as he left, a flaw was revealed, and Khalifa and the others caught it. Lucci, something is bad, our lurking mission failed, and Escanor's identity was discovered by Escanor. He came for Nico Robin, and Kaku and Bruno were seriously injured. Khalifa's hurried voice came out from inside the phone bug. The expressions of the people who had different expressions suddenly became stiff. All eyes turned and locked on the phone bug. Regardless of Gabra or Owl, they just couldn't get used to Lucci completing the task. However, he was absolutely unwilling to see that the mission that had spent years lurking in the Seven Waters City had failed. Does this count as a calamity? Khalifa, what happened? Isn't Escanor the candidate for the new Shichibukai that the world government intends to recruit? How does he have a relationship with Nico Robin? Spandam's expression sank, and he snatched the phone bug in Lucci's hand, and roared angrily, Kaku and Bruno, aren't they the elites of 9? Did the lurking missions over the years make your body rust? Facing this comment, Lucci couldn't help frowning. He is also a member of the stealth mission. In Spandam's terms, Kaku and Bruno's bodies are rusted. That mean that his body is also rusted? No. Spandam obviously noticed the change in Lucci's expression, and hurriedly changed the subject. Khalifa, you said that Kaku and Bruno were seriously injured by Escanor. How about Escanor's injury? He dared to attack us and ruined our mission. At least he needs to be caught. As for how the 5 old stars deal with him, that is another matter. If we say that Nico Robin, the child of the devil, is a threat to the existence of the world of Hades would be the quickest way to enhance the power of the world government. Perhaps, Pluto is difficult to make. However, with the world government, and Vegapunk beyond the human mind for 500 years. Perhaps, Pluto cannot be mass-produced. However, as long as there are enough materials, or alternative materials, it may not be impossible for Vegapunk to replicate 3 or 5 ships. Once it really reaches this level, I am afraid the whole sea will change.